Discover how a cleaning lady's amazing bubble trick unexpectedly inspired a millionaire CEO to change his life forever. Emma glanced down at her worn sneakers, the soles caked with the remnants of the day's work. Another paycheck, another tight scrape, it hardly ever felt like enough. The salty air kissed her cheeks as she guided her cart through the upscale office building, listening to the soft whoosh of air conditioning merging with the distant crash of waves against the Oregon shore. Her 3 children weighed heavily on her mind. Each dollar earned felt like a climb up a never-ending hill of bills, every decision a balancing act. Exhaustion wrapped around her like an old, tattered blanket, but beneath it lay a flicker of creativity, a connection to her late grandmother who spun joy from nothing more than whimsical bubbles. As Emma scrubbed the gleaming tiled floor, she noticed a figure by the window. Tom, the building's CEO, stared blankly at a stock chart on his laptop, his once ambitious facade crumbling under the weight of a disastrous investment. For a fleeting moment, with their eyes locked, Emma glimpsed herself reflected in his despair. They were each fighting a relentless battle, struggling to stay afloat in their respective worlds of peril. An unsettling thought seized her: could someone like him ever understand her? Breath quickening in her chest, a spark of bravery flickered within her. She wiped away the sweat on her brow and gathered her cleaning supplies, a janitor's cart far too mundane for the wild twist urging her to step outside her comfort zone. With her grandmother's playful spirit echoing in her mind, she pushed a bubble wand from her pocket, hoping to recreate that magic one last time. As she blew into the wand, delicate spheres floated into the fluorescent air, twisting and twirling. Emma's heart raced as Tom turned toward her, eyes wide with color and mischief. For a moment, time stood still as he was drawn closer by the effervescence dancing before him, but the moment shattered. An arrogant executive barged into the room, dismissing Emma with a sneer. "What makes a cleaning lady think she can entertain us?" His words sliced through the air, and Tom hesitated, caught in a moral conflict that twisted knots in his stomach. How absurd was it that a childish trick could ignite such joy, yet here he was, paralyzed by the expectations of his peers. He yearned to defend her but feared the fallout. As Emma's chest tightened with humiliation, she fought to regain her composure. Everything she hoped to share was stripped away, the laughter and joy she sought to bring were replaced by the bitter taste of judgment. Each day felt more pressure cooker than the last, the weight of responsibilities pressing against her ribs. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into an agonizing cycle, with Tom quietly observing Emma as their paths crossed. An unexpected camaraderie was forming, yet both remained shackled to their fears. Would he dare to uplift her, or would he retreat back into the safety of corporate indifference? Emma's talent was bubbling beneath the surface, begging for recognition. The opportunity to raise up to a larger platform loomed like a beacon, but the stakes were terrifyingly high. Torn between standing for the hard-working mother and the instinct to shield himself from ridicule, Tom found his heart weighed down by the very notion of wealth versus worth. Soon, the tide of corporate dynamics would surge forward, forcing him to confront the ultimate truth: when joy floats in the form of a bubble, where do loyalty and courage truly lie? Emma's mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. The bubble trick, once a symbol of childhood joy, had now morphed into a bittersweet reminder of her limitations. Each day as she mopped floors and dusted shelves, shadows of self-doubt loomed larger than the towering buildings surrounding her. Was there a piece of her worth fighting for, or was she simply destined to remain invisible in a world that mostly overlooked the likes of her? She often found herself retreating into daydreams, where creativity flourished and her grandmother's laughter rang out in a world filled with color. The indignant executive's words echoed menacingly. For hours after their brief encounter, Emma replayed the moment in her mind's theater, dissecting every gesture and facial expression. Tom's hesitation nagged at her. Did he want to say something, or was he merely a prisoner of expectation, like she felt? The following morning brought a storm of determination. As she pushed her cart through the familiar halls, Emma resolved not to let her talents go unnoticed. If there was a chance to demonstrate her creativity, to prove that magic could exist even in the mundane, she had to take it. Today wouldn't be just another day. It was a canvas she wouldn't let slip away again. Back in the break room, as she brewed her morning coffee, Emma struck up a conversation with the receptionist, a young woman named Lisa. Have you ever thought about how underappreciated cleaning staff are? Emma asked, trying to gauge Lisa's response. Lisa nodded, her expression thoughtful. It must be tough, she replied. People just see the job and not the person behind it. Emma's chest swelled with the beginnings of an idea, a sensation of possibility rippling through her. What if I shared a bit of joy while I worked? Like, by incorporating playfulness into what I do. Just like the bubbles. Lisa looked intrigued, a spark igniting in her eyes. That could be amazing. You could start a little trend that might even grab the attention of the higher-ups. With newfound energy, Emma set to work. She swapped her regular routine for playful cleaning techniques. Instead of simply washing windows with a dry cloth, she challenged herself to create patterns and sequences, engaging with the mundane in a way that invited others to notice. She hummed tunes while mopping, turning the floor into her personal dance stage, and occasionally, she would blow bubbles for the laughter of passing employees. To her surprise, laughter echoed back. People began to take notice, exchanging smiles and playful banter with the cleaning lady who brought whimsy to their day. But as her popularity grew, Emma faced her own inner turmoil. What if this was all fleeting? What if she stood on shaky ground, building a fragile facade of joy that could crumble with a single harsh word? Tom observed silently from his corner office. Each day, he found himself drawn deeper into her world, a world where doubts battled with bursts of creativity. It unsettled him how much he admired her resolve. No longer merely a cleaning lady, Emma was redefining her existence and, unknowingly, challenging him to rethink his own. The week drifted on, and with each smile Emma received, Tom wrestled with a decision that loomed larger than ever. He had witnessed the transformation and could no longer hide from it. The battle between his professional facade and a genuine desire to embrace who he really was reached a breaking point. The moment was nearing when he would need to step out from behind the safe embrace of corporate expectations and publicly acknowledge the talent that shone before him. Would he embrace Emma's spirit of playfulness or cling to the chains of status? With his world at stake, the time had come to face the reality he had evaded for too long. Emma awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose, the light spilling through her window igniting her ambitions. She had let the doubts settle like dust in the corners of her mind for too long. Each bubble she blew the day before had burst not just into the air, but also through the confines of her own fears. Today, she would do more. As she pushed her cart through the sleek hallways, each step felt lighter. She took a moment to reflect on her progress. Her playful cleaning routine transformed the mundane. Employees greeted her with smiles, and laughter bounced off the walls like the echoes of vibrant colors splashing across her once muted life. This rejuvenation, however, bred new fears. An intangible force pulled at her from within, reminding her that joy could be fleeting. There was a plan forming in her mind, a deeper engagement that transcended simple antics. Emma envisioned creating a series of small visual displays around the office, messages written on mirrors or wrapped around columns suggesting joy in small acts, inviting employees to contribute their own moments of happiness. Each note would act as a bridge between her world and theirs, allowing others to acknowledge her existence while encouraging personal growth among her colleagues. In the break room, among the cacophony of coffee machines and hushed conversations, she shared her plan with Lisa. What if I put ideas out there for everyone to join in? You know, like a community project that reminds us to find the fun in every day. I love it. Lisa exclaimed, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. If you get more people involved, it won't just be your magic anymore. It'll becomes something bigger. But Emma hesitated, weighing the potential backlash. Would they dismiss her efforts as whimsical foolishness? Each moment of triumph came with the threat of vulnerability. Putting herself out there could mean facing ridicule if the reception turned sour. She could easily revert to the background, where she had spent so long, unbothered by expectations. Yet, the thought of transforming the office as a collective was intoxicating. The fear of judgment began to dissolve beneath the fervor of her vision. I'll start with a few notes, she decided aloud. Simple things, she added, her mind racing through an array of uplifting messages. With Lisa's encouragement, Emma began crafting her messages, carefully choosing words that echoed possibilities and sparked joy. By the end of the day, she stood proudly in front of a blank wall, strategically pinning her creations, one by one. Each note shone like a small candle, lighting the dim corners of her insecurities. Tom, witnessing this unfolding spectacle from his office, felt an unfamiliar stir in his heart. Emma's initiative captivated him. He was caught off guard, swimming between admiration and the tension of his own unsatisfactory existence. Could he join her movement? Wouldn't that mean revealing his desire for authenticity beyond the corporate shell he inhabited? The cacophony of laughter grew louder as colleagues began to interact with her messages, adding their own lines, doodles, and sentiments. Emma basked in the warmth of their participation, each connection grounding her purpose even further. But as she found her confidence building, she sensed Tom hovering just beyond the threshold of her newly stitched tapestry. In the quiet moments before the office emptied, she turned to the blank wall once more, feeling the weight of uncertainty press down again. If he chose to step into her world, what would that mean for both of them? Would they navigate the messy intersection of vulnerability, creativity, and authority together, or would he retreat, back to the comfortable shadows of his corporate identity? As the last of the day's light began to fade, Emma stood with bated breath, heart racing. A decision loomed larger than life, a crossroads was ahead. Would Tom take the plunge into authenticity alongside her, or would he allow the weight of expectation to force them apart? She heard the soft shuffle of footsteps approaching. Tom seemed closer now, a choice hanging delicately in the air between them. What awaited them both in this uncharted territory of connection? Emma stood as the office surrounded her with fading energy, the remnants of the day's laughter still echoing in her ears, a soft reminder of her accomplishment. As she pondered the dullness of her mundane tasks, her body was alive with the possibility of what could come next. She felt the electricity of anticipation prickle at her fingertips. Tom's presence, palpable and undeniable, stirred something deep within her. Tom paused just outside the circle of her carefully pinned notes, his eyes darting between the vibrant messages and the laughter of nearby colleagues. With his poised suit clashing against the bright, playful notes, he looked almost out of place. Emma held her breath, praying he would step within her world, allowing their energies to interlace in an unexpected way. "I've never seen this side of the office," he finally said, his voice low as though he were afraid of the joy floating around him. "What inspired you to do all this?" With a warm smile blooming on her face, Emma answered with a mix of pride and vulnerability. "I wanted to create something meaningful, something that encourages us all to find joy in daily moments. Everyone has stories to share." His gaze drifted from her to the wall, a flicker of understanding passing over him. "I didn't think a cleaning lady's initiative could reshape our workplace." The words felt loaded, piercing through her newfound optimism. Emma felt a swell of indignation almost as quickly as the appreciation. And why not? Cleaners see everything, maybe more clearly than those who occupy the corner offices. She recognized the battle brewing within her. She was defending her space and the value of her work in ways she had only previously dreamed of. Tom seemed taken aback by her response, perhaps rattled by her confidence. "You're absolutely right," he said, a tentative smile creeping onto his lips. He stepped closer, the divide closing between their worlds. "Can you show me how this works?" This was new territory. Her typical routine had revolved around isolation, ensuring that her role as a cleaner went unnoticed. But each small interaction she had fostered that day had ignited an energy in her she had never accessed before. She nodded, her determination surging. Of course. You can start by writing something on one of the notes. For a moment, he hesitated, glancing at the page she had created. Without another word, he picked up a pen and scrawled something, drawing a small smiley face underneath. It's cheesy, but here goes, he said, his tone warm and softened. The act felt monumental. She witnessed a man burdened by expectations, a facade of perfection crumbling as he engaged in what felt like simple play. They authored a connection rooted in authenticity as their words mingled on the wall, but then the weight of reality smothered the exhilaration that had flickered to life. What if he returned to meetings and quotas, trading interaction for the coldness of corporate expectations? Her heart writhed at the thought of their brief moment being a mere blip in an endless cycle of professionalism. Would he drift back to his life, dismissing the sincerity of this late afternoon connection? Emma realized she wanted to forge something deeper, but could she push herself to articulate that desire? Did she have the courage to take the leap? Tom's phone buzzed, a stark reminder of the world outside their intimate moment. His expression shifted, clarity mingling with regret as he rose to answer. I'll follow up with you about this. I need to go, he stammered, surprise glistening in his eyes. As he left, Emma felt the thrill of connection ripple away, replaced by uncertainty and gnawing anxiety that pressed against her heart. Would he choose to embrace this newfound perspective, or would he retreat once again into the corporate fog? As the last remnants of daylight finally disappeared, Emma stood alone beside her wall of creativity. The notes flickered with a life of their own, whispers of possibility beckoning her to keep pushing forward. She could not allow that spark to die. Each note was now a part of her, an invitation to dive deeper into vulnerability and growth. What would happen next if she took a bold step forward and reached out beyond the painted words, into the realm of possibility where her aspirations lay waiting? Emma took a deep breath as the office became a more daunting shadow around her. The laughter that had filled the space just moments ago now felt distant, a haunting echo of fleeting connection. As she gazed at the bright notes that adorned the walls, each a testament to her effort and vision, an unshakable resolve began to take root within her. She could sense that something had shifted. Tom's interest had opened a crack in the fortress of her self-doubt. A flicker of determination pulled at her as she pulled out her phone, her fingers hovered above the screen. Could she invite him to talk more? To collaborate? The thought sent a flutter of anxiety through her veins, but she brushed it aside. This was her moment to emerge from the shadows of anonymity that had defined her for far too long. She was more than just someone who cleaned, she was an architect of happiness, a creator of engagement. The next morning, with an urgency that felt foreign yet inviting, Emma sent Tom a text, inviting him to meet for coffee. It was a small step, but her heart raced as she imagined the possibilities. She wanted to encourage dialogue, to build on that pristine moment they had shared, even if just for a fleeting hour. He responded quickly, promising to meet her during his break. Waiting felt surreal. The moment stretched painfully, as uncertainty twisted in her stomach. What if he was only humoring her? What if this was a futile venture? Yet beneath it all, a more profound instinct had begun to blossom, an urge to claim her voice and articulate her aspirations. When they met, Tom's demeanor was transformed. No longer the detached executive, he engaged with a warmth that felt genuine. They sipped coffee, and for the first time, Emma found herself not just sharing her vision of the vibrant wall but also articulating larger dreams infused with color. I've been thinking, she began hesitantly, there's a deeper conversation that needs to happen in workplaces. We often focus on productivity and performance instead of well-being and connection. Her voice steadied as her passion took over. You can drive change from the bottom up. Everyone has value, and nurturing that could redefine our environment entirely. Tom leaned in, his eyes bright with interest. He seemed to understand. There's merit in that, he replied thoughtfully. I've felt it too, but sometimes it's hard to translate those values into action. Their dialogue unfolded as a rich tapestry of ideas and viewpoints. Emma shared her insights born from the daily observations of her role. She realized that this was no longer a simple exchange, she was challenging Tom to recognize the power of vulnerability within leadership. But as their conversation deepened, a flicker of doubt returned. Was she overstepping? Was this boldness inviting scrutiny rather than collaboration? It clawed at her, threatening to extinguish the shared momentum of the conversation. She took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth of the cup seep into her hands, grounding her again. Sometimes I feel like people only see me as a cleaner, she admitted quietly. There's so much more I want to give. The honesty drenched her words with vulnerability, hoping they would resonate between them. Tom's expression shifted, understanding etching into his features. What if we found a way to bring that to life? He proposed, a glimmer of enthusiasm in his eyes. Maybe we could pilot a project that focuses on employee well-being, involving everyone across the board. The idea hung tantalizingly in the air, her heart raced as she contemplated the enormity of it. The respect in his voice carried a weight she hadn't anticipated. Could their collaboration influence a culture shift within the office? It felt daunting yet exhilarating. Yet doubt drummed in the back of her mind. Would they face resistance? Would the corporate machine funnel their ideas into anonymity? The fear loomed, but a flicker of resolve propelled her forward. She needed to embrace this chance. Let us make it happen, Emma responded, her voice steadied with newfound confidence. Just as Tom lit up with excitement, she caught sight of another colleague watching from a distance, a skeptical eyebrow raised. Was this the start of something truly transformative, or merely an ambitious daydream destined to fail? As Tom proposed they meet more frequently to develop their ideas, Emma felt the pressure mounting. The stakes were higher now. She would have to navigate not just her fears but also the perceptions of others, who might not view her ambitions as legitimate. With a mix of determination and trepidation coursing through her, Emma realized the true challenge lay ahead. Could she sustain this newfound partnership while carving out her space in a world that had so often overlooked her? The moment of truth loomed on the horizon. She was ready to step into it, even if uncertainty clung to her. The thrill of possibility surged within her. She was determined to break free from the confines she had known. What would happen when she confronted both her ambitions and the perceptions of others with unyielding resolve? Would her voice ring out, or would it falter under pressure? Emma arrived back at her desk, the hum of the office like a distant ocean, teeming with waves of energy and unspoken words. The gravity of her recent conversation with Tom weighed heavily on her, filling her with both hope and trepidation. She was teetering at the edge of something profound, yet lingering doubts gnawed at her. Would her ideas be met with genuine interest, or would they simply be dismissed as fanciful dreams from a cleaner trying to step out of her shadows? Determined to translate her vision into tangible actions, Emma began brainstorming. She pulled out a notepad, the blank pages inviting her thoughts to flow freely. Each stroke of her pen felt like a battle cry against her self-doubt. She wrote down suggestions for the well-being project, workshops on emotional intelligence, activities that encourage team bonding, and environmental enhancements that would promote creativity and comfort in the office. With each idea that emerged, her hesitation waned, transforming into conviction. Yet a nagging voice in her mind whispered caution: what if this plan fell flat? What if Tom had simply been agreeing out of politeness? The stakes were rising, and she recognized that part of her journey would involve confronting not just the skepticism of others but also her own. After lunch, she stepped into the break room and observed her colleagues setting up for a quick birthday celebration. Chatting and laughing, they filled the room with a buoyancy that was contagious. Emma felt both connected to the joyful atmosphere and an outsider to their camaraderie. Perhaps that was it, a lack of connection. Her project could bridge that gap. Hey, Emma. Jennifer, a receptionist, waved her over. Join us for cake. Emma hesitated for a heartbeat, then walked over. Thanks, I will. As she sunk her teeth into the rich chocolate, a thought crystallized within her. If she wanted to inspire change, she needed to find ways to connect with her colleagues on a deeper level. She could invite them into the conversation about well-being, not merely inform them but involve them. This revelation was intoxicating. What if she presented her ideas informally first? It could be a casual chat, perhaps over a coffee or during lunch breaks, where the pressure of formal presentations wouldn't stifle the enthusiasm they could explore together. This was a way to dismantle the hierarchy that often stifled creativity and engagement, and it could give her the feedback she craved before formalizing anything with Tom. As days passed, she seized small moments, the quieter corridors, the small groups of employees in the break room, to mention her thoughts and gather insights. The more she shared, the more adventurous she became. Each conversation chipped away at her fear, replacing it with an infectious excitement. Tom noticed the shift too. During one of their follow-up meetings, as she shared what she'd gleaned from the discussions, Emma observed the spark of approval in his eyes. "You're onto something powerful, Emma," he encouraged. "Involving everyone in this conversation might be the key." However, a meeting with higher-ups loomed over her. As they discussed the upcoming project, she felt the weight of their presence. Would they dismiss her ideas outright? Would their skepticism resonate louder than the encouragement she felt from Tom? The night before the pivotal meeting, Emma couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, envisioning the boardroom a sterile space filled with professionals who would scrutinize her every word. The fear tightened around her chest, and she fought against it. Then she remembered the cake moments, the laughter shared over simple words of connection. If she could bring a fragment of that warmth into the meeting, perhaps it could soften the edges of their corporate facade. She could recast herself, not just as a cleaner but as an advocate for unity and well-being. As dawn broke, a shift occurred within her. The lingering anxiety transformed into palpable excitement, a slow awakening of the part of her that sparkled with possibility. What if she reframed the meeting? What if she challenged her colleagues' perceptions of her role, not through confrontation, but through the power of shared experience? With one last deep breath, she vowed to stand firm. She would share not just her project, but her passion, the why behind it, and how it felt essential for everyone involved, including herself. The moment of truth had arrived. Would she find her voice amidst the sea of skepticism, or would it succumb to the fears she had long fought? Emma stepped into the boardroom with a composure she didn't quite feel. The gleaming surface of the long table and the sterile atmosphere did little to lighten the pressure mounting inside her. Each step echoed her determination, a rhythmic pause punctuated by the incessant hum of self-consciousness whispering reminders of her place in this hierarchy. As she faced the assembled executives, their indifferent expressions loomed over her like storm clouds blocking out the sun. Emma clenched her hands to stifle the tremor that coursed through her. This was the moment she had envisioned, a direct challenge to the thinking that confined her to a role that seemed impervious to change. But could she truly transform herself in their eyes? "Thank you for your time today," she began, her voice steady. "I'm here to share a project that I believe could enhance our work environment significantly." The relentless focus of their gazes pushed against her, but she pressed on, channeling the energy from her earlier conversations, the laughter, the shared ideas, the enthusiasm in the break room. One idea after another flowed from her, each captivating moment she had experienced painting a broader picture of her intentions. "I've talked to many of you, and there is a desire for connection," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "What if we held workshops on emotional intelligence? Initiating open conversations about our well-being can create more than just a pleasant workplace, it can cultivate a culture of empathy and engagement." She paused, letting her words hang in the air, fiercely aware of the furrowed brows and tentative smiles, or were they smirks? The tension was palpable, but, in that silence, she felt sparks of hope igniting around the table. Emma ventured deeper. "Environmental enhancements can promote creativity," she proposed. "Plants, comfortable seating areas, spaces that invite spontaneous collaboration, all can contribute to how we feel at work." Slowly, she saw their body language shifting, a tentative acknowledgement blooming where there had been skepticism. But then, an executive leaned forward, skepticism etched on his face. "And this is coming from someone whose primary responsibility is cleaning the office?" he challenged, his tone dripping with condescension. That a wave of heat surged up Emma's spine. The familiar whisper of self-doubt threatened to drown her resolve. Yet, she recognized this moment as pivotal. This was her chance to confront the perceptions that had been shackling her, both their opinions and her own belief in her worth. Yes, it is, Emma stated, her tone calm but firm. But I see things differently. I see how people connect when they feel comfortable, when they believe their environment supports them. Everyone's perspective is valuable regardless of their title or job description. The words hung heavy in the air, a challenge to their established norms. Emma surprised herself, the vulnerability that once terrified her now fueled her confidence. As the meeting progressed, she felt a new sense of agency. The dialogue turned dynamic, with executives asking questions, considering her suggestions in light of their own experiences. By the time she wrapped up, she could see the shift she had longed for. A dialogue was emerging, one driven by respect for her insights, regardless of her role. She had introduced a new lens through which they could view well-being at work, and it felt like a seed had been planted, hopeful and ready to grow. Returning to her desk, Emma found herself exhilarated yet contemplative. The meeting had tested her resolve, but more importantly, it had revealed the power of her voice. She realized that this new path required vigilance. It was not enough to have a plan, it demanded active participation, both in the project and in her own evolution. As she noted down her thoughts, an idea struck her. What if she organized a feedback session to discuss the project informally? It could build into something more robust, cementing her role as a thought leader within her team. But then, she thought about the executives' challenge. Could she truly hold her own even when faced with intimidation? With the weight of this new realization upon her, Emma sat upright at her desk, mind racing. The journey was only beginning. Would she cultivate the courage to continue asserting her vision, or would her past insecurities resurface, threatening to stifle the spark she had ignited? Emma's thoughts raced like an electric current, crackling with both excitement and anxiety. The dust of self-doubt settled heavily on her as she tapped her pen against the notepad. She knew that to preserve the momentum she had built, she needed to transition from ideas to action. The informal feedback session had to be engaging, vibrant, a real forum for connection. But in her gut, the question lingered: how could she transform a meeting into something more than just another ordinary gathering? After the meeting, Emma glanced around her workspace and let her imagination run wild. What would it take to create a warm, inviting atmosphere that would coax her colleagues out of their shells? Suddenly, an idea blossomed. If she could combine creativity, engagement, and insightfulness in that space, she could cultivate a genuine dialogue. The prospect energizing her heart, she envisioned an open space filled with bright colors, warm lighting, and maybe even some light snacks to keep spirits high. But organizing a session was more than logistics. It was about establishing trust and significance in her role. Emma pored over her notes from the meeting, reviewing her bullet points and feedback from her peers. The vibrant threads of ideas were there, but she needed to weave them into a coherent narrative that would rally support. That evening, under the pale glow of her desk lamp, she modified her proposal, adding interactive elements such as team-building exercises and discussion prompts. Each modification felt like a small declaration of her identity, an architect of relationships, a purveyor of workplace happiness. As she drafted the invitation for the session, a sudden mist of doubt clouded her vision. What if no one showed up? What if the executive's initial interest was only a fluke? Voices in her head flooded with whispers of affirming her worth, but she quickly silenced them, focusing on her mission. The next day, she sent out the invitations, feeling the weight of every click as her heart beat in rapid succession. She chose her words carefully, emphasizing the importance of candid feedback not just for her project, but for the whole team, an opportunity for everyone to be heard, for their voices to matter. The clock ticked away, and as the hour drew closer, apprehension took hold. Would anyone be willing to share their thoughts? Would her ideas resonate, or would they fizzle out? Emma made her way to the meeting room, her pulse racing as she prepared for the unexpected. She arrived early, arranging chairs in a circle, refusing to let herself dwell on negative possibilities. Instead, she envisioned a vibrant exchange, where voices ignited ideas and insights flew freely, a community of thinkers. Gradually, the room filled. A few familiar faces appeared, followed by some she recognized but had never spoken to before. Conversations started to ripple through the gathering as laughter filled the space. Emma stood at the front, feeling the wave of pride wash over her. She was leading her vision, this was her space, her moment, and their collaboration. As the feedback session commenced, Emma noticed an unexpected shift. Colleagues began engaging with one another more deeply than she anticipated. They shared stories, offered perspectives, and even challenged the norms Emma had raised, but with respect and enthusiasm. During this communal inquiry, one executive admitted to feeling disconnected in the hustle and bustle of corporate life. "Sometimes, I forget the people behind the roles we play," he confessed. Emma's heart swelled with joy. This was the culture shift she aimed for. The seeds she had planted were germinating into a garden of empathy and understanding. As enthusiasm grew, Emma felt emboldened, realizing that she didn't just belong here, she was shaping the narrative. Yet, beneath this rising tide of optimism, a thin veil of fear loomed. Her initial successes prompted new uncertainties. How far could this change really go? And would the previous skepticism from executives truly dissipate, or would it reform in more insidious ways? Gripping the podium, she acknowledged the burgeoning dialogue, feeling both exhilarated and on the edge of a precipice. Could she maintain this newfound momentum? Would her past insecurities stay buried, or would old fears resurrect themselves once again? The moment of transformation was here. She had stepped out boldly, but now she faced an even greater question. What would the next steps demand of her? And as she glanced at her audience, an unexpected thought curled its way through her mind. The time had come to face the ultimate test of her resolve. With the meeting winding down, Emma felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her. Each conversation had been a thread-weaving connection, and she was filled with the warmth of shared understanding and mutual respect. Yet, in that moment of success, the lingering doubts began to resurface, weaving their own narratives of caution in her mind. As colleagues started to drift away, Emma noticed that a few remained, their eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. They expressed a desire to continue the conversation, to build on the insights shared that afternoon. Here was a golden opportunity, and with renewed determination, she proposed a follow-up brainstorming session to keep the momentum alive. The idea sparked instant interest, and they enthusiastically agreed to meet next week. Afternoons like these were what she found invigorating, creating an atmosphere where her voice could amplify others. However, a nagging voice whispered, was she merely a facilitator, or could she lead authentically? Emma clenched her jaw, deciding this would be her chance to explore where her leadership could take her. The next several days were filled with preparation. Emma drafted an agenda that was a balance of structure and flexibility, carefully considering how to harness the energy of her team while allowing space for serendipitous creativity. She reached out to colleagues, requesting contributions and input, weaving their strengths into her plans. Here, in the crucible of collaboration, her fears were momentarily eclipsed by the thrill of co-creation. However, as the day of the second session approached, Emma found herself pressed with questions that gnawed at her like a persistent shadow. What if the initial enthusiasm waned? What if the executives chose to withdraw their support once they realized this was merely another fleeting initiative? The walls of her mind, once painted with vibrant possibilities, began to feel confining. On the morning of the session, she prepared meticulously. An unexpected visitor. Self-doubt crept through her mental barriers yet again. Her reflection in the mirror revealed a woman who was both eager and apprehensive, clad in purpose but tainted with uncertainty. You have conviction, she reminded herself, firming her resolve. You're not just orchestrating ideas, you are the catalyst. As the gathering began, Emma took a breath, reminding herself of the shared vulnerability she had witnessed before. The room filled with chatter like an orchestra warming up, and this time she would not hide behind her notes, she would actively engage in the rhythms of the discussion. The meeting flourished, and ideas spun into being. Those who once felt hesitant grew bolder and bolder, riffing off one another and building ideas not unlike jazz musicians following an improvised tune. Emma facilitated with confidence, drawing connections, encouraging divergent thinking, and highlighting individual contributions. Each person's voice amplified her sense of belonging. She was no longer merely a participant, but a leader in formation, yet still, the tension within her remained. Each successful interaction ignited a flicker of excitement, but alongside that was a relentless questioning of whether she truly possessed the talents required to sustain this growing initiative. What would happen when the novelty of this collaboration faded? Emma exhaled slowly, steeling herself against the inner doubts, recognizing they might always be a part of her journey. As the session concluded, applause erupted, filling the air with gratitude and encouragement. Emma stood at the front, her hands trembling slightly as she acknowledged the energy in the room. But while her heart surged with pride, the back of her mind clung to uncertainty like a shadow. Was she capable of steering this burgeoning movement forward, or would enthusiasm give way to doubt? With every ounce of her being, she hoped to keep this spark igniting, and as the crowd began to disperse, she found herself captivated by an unexpected thought: if she could cultivate a safe space for open dialogue, could she also create room for her own authenticity to rise? Driven by this revelation, she pondered the uncharted waters of her leadership journey ahead. Yet, one unanswerable question loomed larger than the rest: would she confront the insecurities that had haunted her thus far or allow them to dictate her path? Emma stood before her colleagues, the traces of hesitation melting away with each passing moment. The room buzzed with energy, alive with discussion and burgeoning camaraderie. As the creative ideas flowed and resonated among team members, she felt the shift within herself occur, an evolution into a role she had long sought but never truly believed she could embody, that of a leader. No longer merely the cleaning lady, Emma was now the architect of an emotional and productive renaissance in their workplace. She had not only spearheaded a project focused on well-being but cultivated an environment where everyone felt empowered to contribute. The laughter that echoed through the room wasn't just the sound of colleagues enjoying one another's company, it was a resounding affirmation of her vision taking palpable form. Each idea exchanged was a testament to her journey, a vivid portrayal of transformed connections and purpose. In this atmosphere, her self-doubt, previously overpowering, transformed into a quiet confidence. The voices of skepticism faded beneath the wave of collective enthusiasm. She actively engaged with her colleagues, facilitating discussions that encouraged vulnerability and openness. It was exhilarating. Her hands gestured animatedly, enthusiasm bubbling forth as she embraced the role of the catalyst. Later that afternoon, as the discussion subsided, Emma felt a tranquil clarity envelop her. Having synthesized feedback and proposed new initiatives that resonated with her coworkers, she felt a sense of fulfillment that had eluded her through years of scrubbing floors and pushing carts. People appreciated her input, validating her ideas based on merit, not position. Tom, having observed her transformation from a discreet presence to a vibrant force, approached her with admiration glimmering in his eyes. "Emma," he said, drawing her aside, "your leadership in those sessions has been incredible. You're reshaping the culture here in ways I didn't think were possible. I'd like to feature your project at the upcoming leadership meeting. Can we prepare a presentation together?" His words washed over her like a wave of inspiration, melding with the deep-rooted dreams she had once kept under wraps. It was so visible now, the scope of her influence was not limited to her initial, cleaning lady, title but extended into realms of creativity, connection, and change. As she prepared for the meeting, fueled by excitement, Emma reflected on how far she had come. This moment was far beyond being acknowledged, it was empowerment and validation woven seamlessly together. On the day of the presentation, Emma stepped into the conference room, nerves flitting within her but confident in the vast ocean of support she had begun to cultivate. Tom sat beside her, ready to champion her insights and lay bare the transformative impacts they had previously envisioned as merely dreams. The executives, some skeptical a few weeks earlier, now leaned in with curiosity. Emma launched into the presentation, her voice resonating with the confidence earned through her efforts. She articulated the framework behind her project, sharing not only quantitative benefits but also the qualitative changes in team morale and workplace satisfaction. By the time she concluded, an atmosphere of excitement swirled around the room. Questions flowed freely, and Emma engaged with each one, her newfound authority bridging the gap between corporate hierarchy and authentic connection. The approval that followed was palpable. As one executive clapped her shoulder, he remarked, "This is exactly the kind of initiative we needed to reinvigorate our workplace culture." With that acknowledgement, Emma stood tall, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had confronted her fears, transformed her approach to work, and, ultimately, had grown into a trusted leader. She felt contentment seep in. She had not only recognized her worth but also elevated her role into one that shaped the world around her. Each step taken was now a stepping stone toward building a brighter future, not just for herself, but for every soul within the office, nurturing a space rich with potential and joy. Emma concluded her day with a quiet sense of pride. She had conquered her self-doubt and uncertainty. She was not merely living her dreams, she was shaping them into reality. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for extraordinary personal journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Let your voice join this community of transformation.